So what is the perfect amount of bobbins you should own? That is the great bobbin debate. Hi, I'm Sarah from sewingmastery.com, and I thought today we should talk about bobbins. Now, this is normally the time of year after people have often gotten sewing machines for Christmas, and they get home and they open them up and they realize that the sewing machine has come with 4 bobbins. Or maybe you have been sewing for a while and you realize you're always reaching for your bobbins and then realizing you're having to pull thread off and rewind with a new color. So the question of the day, and I get asked this a lot, especially at our new owners classes, how many bobbins should I own? And I remember when I worked more at the store than I do now, is I'd always ask people, well, do you want an extra pack of bobbins? And they're always like, no, no, no. You know, really, they've spent all this money and, you know, they just don't want to add one more thing. Well, bobbins is something that you can never have enough of. But over the years, we have asked enough of our sewing clubs and sewing classes approximately how many bobbins people have that they feel is a comfortable amount. So I'm going to tell you the amount, but I also am going to go into some other bobbin questions that we get asked. So stick with me as we answer some additional bobbin frustrations that people are always asking us about. So the magic number we have found is between 20 and 30 bobbins. So if you look in your drawer and you're like, oh yeah, that's about how many I have, you're probably been okay when winding new colors and not feeling like you don't have enough. Okay, let's just stop right here. I'm curious, how many bobbins do you have for your current machine that you use all the time? Take a quick glance at where you keep all your bobbins and post your bobbin count in the comments below and let everyone see how many bobbins you own. Some of you have sewing and embroidery combo machines, and we all know that embroidery users use a slightly different bobbin thread. Usually it's a little bit finer than I use when I sew. So you might actually find yourself with 2 sets of bobbins, more your sewing bobbins, and then over here, your embroidery bobbins, which leads me to my next question we get asked all the time, is about winding bobbin thread for embroidery. So you can buy bobbin thread, usually it comes in white and black, and most of the time that's really all you need. On occasion, I'll wind a spool that is specific for a certain project where I'm going to see the front and the back with that exact color that I'm embroidering with. So if it's a red and I want red on my bobbin, well, then I'm winding that bobbin with that exact color. Lace design, something you're going to see the back of. Yes, that's when I'll use the same thread that I'm embroidering with on my bobbin. But all in all, most of the time it's the specific bobbin thread and it's finer and it really makes the stitching come out nice and flat. It's not too thick. And then your tensions of your machine are actually adjusted for that lighter weight anyway. So I tend to have a set of bobbins that I'll just go ahead when I buy a new spool of white bobbin thread, I'll just take time and wind all my bobbins at once. I have been known to pay my child to also sit and wind bobbins for me. So if that helps you get bobbins wound faster because you don't like to do it, that is also another way to do it. But the question is about pre-wound bobbins. So not all the machines can take pre-wound bobbins like Bernina's. You've got a bigger bobbin. They don't make these in pre-wounds. You're always winding yours. But on the other hand, they're jumbo size and they hold a lot more thread. So pre-wound bobbins are great. If you love them, go for it. If you find yourself from time to time having some issues with your machine, one of the first things I'm going to probably suggest is to wind your own bobbin and see if that was the reason you were having the trouble. So yes, they're convenient. They're a little bit more expensive. If you like to save a dime, you're going to just get empty bobbins and wind them yourself. So now that you know the sweet spot of how many bobbins you should have, next time you head to the store, pick up an extra pack. You don't have to buy them all at once, but maybe buy a pack every time you go. So after you get your bobbins home is where to store them. The chaos of bobbins, and you know, they get all the strings and everything. My favorite is just the easy bobbin savers. They come as donuts, they come in rows. I'll put some links below that you can actually find where to buy these. If you do have the Bernina with the extra large bobbins, they do make these, and this is one of them that is actually a jumbo size, so they fit the larger bobbin. So just remember which machine you own and buy the bobbins that are appropriate. Now, before I go into my other list of things to be aware of, I'm going to ask you two things. If you've been enjoying the content that we've been putting out, the proper way to say thank you is to always click the like button before you're done watching the video. That helps support our channel along with you subscribing. So if you haven't already subscribed, please do so now. The second thing that we have are online courses for a lot of our Bernina, Husqvarna Viking, and FOF users. Some of our most popular courses are some of the samples that are behind me. The Stitching Cosmos course is the one that helps people master the sewing side of their machine, decorative stitches, accessory feet. Every block is a different technique, and there's absolutely no embroidery done in that course. Our embroidery course, that is our most popular course, is our Embroidery Essentials course that will walk you through 15 different embroidery techniques, helping you master every corner of your embroidery machine. So if you haven't gotten that machine out or feel confident that you're using it to its fullest, check out the link in the description below for that course. And all of our courses have free videos that you can watch for free and see if that course is right for you. For those of you who have the re-hooping feature, it allows you to hoop crooked. Our whole cloth quilt course is a great one to also take a look at. That would be the Bernina Pinpoint Placement Masterclass, the Husqvarna Viking Design Positioning Masterclass, and the FOF Precise Positioning Masterclass. Now we have other courses as well, so I invite you to email me your machine make and model to info@sewingmastery.com. Tell me what you want to learn, and I'll put together a customized list of courses and free videos that would be right for you. Now here's just a little bonus. On occasion, bobbin winders stop working for one reason or another, and you're stuck without a way to wind a bobbin. There are something that will work on some machines, not all machines, that are called side winders. I'll put a link below just in case you need to check that out, or you're in a bobbin winding emergency and need to know what to do before you can get it into a service technician. Now, speaking of a couple things on the service side of bobbin winders, traditionally, like this is one thing our service gentlemen and ladies don't do on a regular basis, is wind a bobbin on your machine. So they are cleaning your machine, they will clean the bobbin winder, make sure it's lubricated and all set to go. But if you haven't specified that there's a problem with your bobbin winder, they're not going to waste a whole spool of thread winding a bobbin. So when your machine is dropped off, mention to them on your service notes to check the bobbin winder, tell them what the problem is so they can look at it and fix it. A lot of people like this little side winder just because it's convenient and it can be done off the machine at a later time. Another common question people ask, especially when I am doing the Stitching Cosmos course, is I'm jumping around from color to color, from stitch to stitch, is what color do I use in my bobbin? And honestly, I use a very neutral color. A lot of times I'm matching that weight of thread similar to the weight of thread I'm using on the top, but it doesn't always have to be the same. Now, if you do have a thicker thread in the top and a thinner thread in your bobbin, you will need to adjust tension just a little bit. As I always say, when you turn the tension dial, if you don't know which way to turn it, one will make it worse, and then you know to go the other way, and one will make it better. You're also turning it more than just a number. So if your tension dial says 4 and you turn it up to 5, you should probably start to see a difference. 5 to 6 for tighter, and from 4 to 3 to 2.5 for looser. So it just depends if you're seeing bobbin thread on top or if you're seeing too much of the top thread down below. It's just a balancing act. And like I said, if you don't know which way to go, you can always turn it a number or 2 one direction and it will get worse or it'll get better. Another thing we run into is sometimes people's machines are winding certain threads a little tight. Now, it's not your machine's problem and it's not the thread's problem, but kind of the combination of the two depending on the brand of thread. So we've actually decided that winding a little bit slower than the max speed actually is better for both the thread and the bobbin. There are times where we've actually seen bobbins crushed or kind of pushed or bubbled up in size because too much thread has gotten into that too fast and it's actually so tight it expanded, usually like the plastic bobbins. So if you're ever having a trouble with a bobbin, and this is very rare, but it is one of those things that when people come in for troubleshooting and having troubles, I have sometimes pulled out their bobbin and I've just felt it and then realized that it's thicker than normal. Now, if you're not familiar with your machine, you wouldn't know that, but as you compare it to another bobbin that's been wound normally, you might find that one bobbin is taller than the other, and that is a key problem. And when a bobbin's too tall, it doesn't fit in the bobbin area correctly and will cause problems while you're sewing. So it's very unique, but it does happen from time to time, and those bobbins we just need to throw away and replace with a new pack. Now on the Pfaff and Viking bobbins, there's this little ridge inside that is telling the sensor when you're running low on bobbin. Now what we're gonna do is I have a video of how to trick the machine so when you actually get the pop-up message that you're out of thread, that you have about this much thread left. If you know this little trick, you can eliminate a lot of extra thread that kind of gets left in that top area. Yes, you can go ahead and keep sewing, but then you have to just know that eventually you're going to run out. When on my machine with this little trick, once that sensor pops up that the bobbin is out of thread, you are done. You could go a few more stitches, but not very many. When people see this little trick, they know what I'm talking about, and it saves them a ton of time and a ton of frustration. We actually have a pretty popular video of our service technicians' pet peeves, and I was going to ask them what their pet peeves are when it comes to bobbins, but I think I already know the answer. If you want to eliminate giving your service technicians the heebie-jeebies, in your accessory box, you should only have the brand of bobbin that is right for that machine. There's so many times they get a machine in for service, they open up the case for a bobbin, and they realize that there is one or two or even three different kinds of bobbins in the accessory box, but two of them are not for that machine. That kind of freaks them out. So what you want to do is make sure that you keep bobbins for each machine separate and that they aren't mixed and matched. The other thing that makes me go, is when I see plastic bobbins and there's more than one color wound on the bobbin. So that's the classic example that you don't have enough bobbins at your fingertips. So maybe instead of 20 bobbins, you should be the one to have somewhere closer to 30 bobbins. Next time you go to the sewing machine store, I give you permission to pick up an extra pack of bobbins. So I hope this has helped you with the great bobbin debate of how many bobbins you should own. If this has been helpful, remember to click like and check out the links that we have below for some other great bobbin resources we recommend for you. If you're curious about any of our online courses, there's links below, or drop me an email at info@sewingmastery.com. Happy sewing!